Hey kid, want an egg? It's an empty street, and the egg vendor has finally managed to find a potential customer. On your way to an important doctor's appointment and in need of some brevity, you say, "Oh, excellent. Can I have a chicken first?" To which the egg vendor pretends to laugh along before really insisting he wants you to have this egg. So okay, you take the egg, a little wary but okay, and the egg man responds with a look of horror after just having seen you unhinge your jaw and swallow a raw egg whole. Now at risk of salmonella, you're very eager to get to the doctor and the question comes again. Would you like another egg? Your mind is reeling. 2 eggs? Well, I guess it couldn't hurt. You're very much wrong. Salmonella very much can hurt. But luckily, this is a metaphor, so your risk of salmonella is purely theoretical. Unless you've done one of these things. So you graciously accept and... Great. Now you don't have to get lunch, but you really do need to go to that syphilis testing appointment now. But as you turn away, the Eggman says this. Would you like another egg? Would you like another egg? Would you like another egg? On the 20th egg, your previous question is met. Not 1 egg came before the chicken, but 19. As well as a mouse, donkey, and well... On the 21st egg you say, wow, I hope an exact replica of this egg isn't given to me next. On the 22nd egg, your legs begin to shake. Hours later, you gaze down at the 82nd egg and think to yourself, damn, maybe I'm a little bit sick of eggs now. Or the salmonella has finally caught up to you. You're wrong, it's probably syphilis again, but at least you put it out of your mind. Smash Ultimate was released in 2018, 2 years ago. What? Oh, you're saying it's 2024? Haha, yeah. And people born in 2016 and turning 8 this... Oh. Well, as the COVID years distorted my sense of time beyond all recognition, Smash Ultimate continued to receive DLC characters up until the end of 2021, bringing the number of characters up to 82. Mario Kart 8 was released in 2014 with a nice even 32 tracks. Over the next few years it would receive DLC bringing up to a nice even 48 tracks, which was carried forward to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch release. Years later, in February of 2022, I sat down to watch a Nintendo Direct and learned that another 48 tracks were being added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the form of the Booster Course Pass, grotesquely extending the track size, lifespan, and the name of the game beyond all normal proportions. But naturally, we've all begun to wonder, what's next for these games? I mean, it's been 5 years since Ultimate released, and nearly 10 since Mario Kart 8. Whilst the games have received substantial DLC, Nintendo is always working on the next games in flagship franchises like these. They may still be a few years off, likely a couple years into Nintendo's next system, which is rumoured to be arriving late 2024. Though there is a distinct possibility that one of these series may be a launch title or early release for Nintendo's next system. The question is, how do you follow up these behemoth titles that have sold so unfathomably well? The reason that I group these titles together is because of their shared design philosophy. These games were designed to be big. How big? Think American serving size big. But these games were not only big, they were designed to honour the history of the series thus far by remaking old content, the racing tracks, characters and stages. However, this approach is inherently built upon decades of previous work, and thus I sense a change in the wind. I can see 3 major issues with this design philosophy if it were to continue into the next generations of Smash and Mario Kart. Problem number 1 is that this sheer size of content isn't sustainable. I mean, one look at Sakurai's unholy work habits will convince you of that. The man literally got sick, likely from overwork, so of course when he was recommended bed rest by the doctor, he went to bed to recover. No. Bro said, give me the IV drip and I'll get back to work. If that is what is needed to finish a game like Ultimate, a Smash game larger than Ultimate sends shivers down my lazy spine. If I was not lazy enough to move my spine, that is. Sakurai actually stated this idea pretty explicitly in an interview back in 2021, claiming they had reached the limit in terms of volume of content and fighters. Even if Nintendo manages to make one more game after Ultimate and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that is even more titanically Titanic, where do they go after that? Nintendo is just not going to stop making Smash and Mario Kart. When we're 10 games down the line, what's next? Problem number 2. Nintendo is a crow. They are obsessed with shiny new things. Newness is their crack cocaine. We've seen them make countless pointless and even detrimental innovations. The Joy-Con IR sensor, Wii U gamepad, Xenoblade Chronicles, limited releases, and political censorship. However, Nintendo does need something to draw people away from Smash Ultimate and Mario Kart 8. Or rather, they don't need to do that, but they think they do. Every game in these series has introduced something new, and unlike some other Nintendo series like Mario and Zelda, Nintendo only wants you to be playing the most recent games in Smash and Mario Kart. Just look at their treatment of Melee, for instance. They have heavily discouraged people from playing any older Smash game in particular, and neither series has received any remakes, remasters, or re-releases. Problem number 3. Adding content to a game like Smash Ultimate in particular becomes exponentially more difficult due to the modifications that must be made to the rest of the game to accommodate this new change. Ultimate asymptotically approached the maximum number of characters possible for a design team of their current size. Mario Kart 8 is a little less susceptible to this issue because new tracks really just can be added in without affecting the rest of the game too much. But there is an additional issue. The next Nintendo system will likely have upgraded power, and with it, a higher temporal demand on developers to produce high fidelity games. Even just making Ultimate again on an upgraded Switch would extend development time dramatically. Problem number 4. As my lovely egg metaphor explained earlier, or let's be honest, probably didn't explain earlier, fans love content. Smash Ultimate and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe were tremendously hype-worthy and fantastic games all around, but this extreme amount of content is something we've now seen before. If the next games in each series are really just more characters, more tracks, with a few tweaks to the kart racing and the fighting style, then doesn't that just sound disappointing? Nintendo has already done the content approach, it's time for something new. Both Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Booster Course Pass, DLC, Series X, New, and Smash Ultimate are widely considered the pinnacles of their series, not only for the sheer size of their games, but for their retrospective nature. It is due to their revival of legacy content that I feel these games are natural conclusions for their series, a loving farewell to these classic eras of Smash and Mario Kart. In my eyes, Nintendo is at a crossroads for Smash and Mario Kart. Their design focus could take two different paths. They could try to just push through all this. Maybe the next Mario Kart game will have 192 tracks, and Smash will have 178 characters. Though realistically, probably be more like 105. Maybe the teams will expand and add more content to each subsequent game, and inevitably, development will require an ever-expanding budget. A possibility this is, but we also know Nintendo likes newness and is historically not keen on expanding studio sizes dramatically. The other scenario I find more likely is that we are about to see some real innovation in these game series. While there may be reduced scope in terms of content, Nintendo will make up for this with changes to each series formula. I really don't know if the next Nintendo system will be a simple successor or an attempt to push some more classic Nintendo gimmicks like motion controls and the Wii U gamepad. As they have often done before, if there is new innovation attached to the system itself, perhaps Nintendo will attach these new games' identity to these. Maybe using the Switch 2's new smell dispenser, you'll be able to smell the noxious fumes as Mario and his friends commit eco-terrorism, racing through the now sullied waters of Cheap Cheap Beach. Maybe the Shift's new controller will adapt into Link's sword, or DK's huge fists, allowing you to clock your friends over the head every time they use PK Fire. However, I think more likely is innovations in the gameplay of each, particularly the mechanics of each series rather than the structure. It is also crucial that the amount of content in each game is significantly reduced to free up development time for new innovations. Now, it should be known that my friends say that I am perhaps the most casual person ever when it comes to relationships, and also Smash and Mario Kart, but even I can think of at least one or two ideas for each of these series, so let's list some off just for fun. In a new and improved Smash game, I could see a greater number and variety of gimmicks. Things like Sephiroth's one win, Hero's RNG move select, and Pokemon trainers switching between multiple Pokemon, but for all characters and with even more depth. Perhaps we could see characters with the ability to regain health by landing attacks, but it also have Lucaria's aura, creating a delicate balance of their attacks becoming weaker the more damage they do. Or characters that may have unique systems brought over from their games, such as the Knight from Hollow Knight having his soul vessels, or Samus being able to upgrade parts of her suit by collecting power-ups that drop randomly across the game. I think the thing I'd find most interesting, and perhaps something that could synergize well with character gimmicks/abilities, is interactable terrain. More specifically, destructible and movable terrain. Imagine Link ultra handing up a part of the ground and relocating it, or assembling some items together into the penis robot. Or what about Donkey Kong being able to break up the ground around him or being able to destroy platforms? The opportunities afforded by this idea could be game-changing, literally, allowing for competitive battles in which players must fight on ever-shifting terrain that they themselves can influence and use to their advantage. But it must be noted that in this vision for Smash, the character roster would be dramatically shrunk, like jeans in the wash, down to around 40 characters. Similarly, stages would also be more limited, especially if they're interactable like how I described above. I could also see Smash focusing heavily on more indie or non-AAA characters such as Hornet from Hollow Knight, Zagreus from Hades, and Ori from Ori. That is likely just wishful thinking, but it's a fun thought. And now for Nintendo's second most lucrative, and therefore second favourite eco-terrorist series just after Pokemon. The single most common idea that gets tossed around as the successor to Mario Kart 8 is Nintendo Kart, or Super Smash Kart, or Mario Kart All-Stars, or Mario and his eco-terrorist friends go racing. While I think it would be a little fun, I really don't want it to happen. The Nintendo Kart idea at least. The idea of a crossover is great for a couple reasons, but most significant among them is the variety that is provided by their inclusion. The only unique characteristics that characters bring to Mario Kart is their weight, which is just not that interesting mechanically, as well as being the most insidious fat-shaming tool since the Wii Fit balance board. Just look at Smash. Each Smash character brings something unique to the table, has their own unique moveset and playstyle. That's why it works so well as a crossover. Putting Ridley in a cart and watching it struggle to move would be hilarious, but tricking people into thinking Smash moveset is good is an even higher level of comedy. And speaking of Smash, being a big crossover with Nintendo's IPs is Smash's thing. Having a Nintendo Kart 2 would ruin a lot of the magic of Smash. But I could rant about this for ages. On the other hand, I could potentially see Mario Kart more explicitly embrace Mario's long legacy of characters more fully. What even is Red Gold Peach? Give us characters from Thousand Year Door, from Super Mario RPG, from Odyssey, Toadsworth, Geno, Black Chess Demon. That way they retain their unique identities but there's still excitement to each. Something that could be really unique and cool when combined with this is unique character abilities. So what more could we steal from other games to make Mario Kart better and keep up the illusion of innovation? For Mario Kart, I could see a couple structural changes such as a story mode, like Diddy Kong Racing, and going back to unlocking tracks and characters. But I think even more so than Smash, mechanical changes would really help freshen up Mario Kart. There are a lot of relatively small mechanical changes that I think would help with this. Allowing greater control of the glider, for instance, would be a tweak that would help massively with control and player expression. In addition, this would open up more opportunities for more interesting use of the air, perhaps as longer, more important sections, rather than just as flashy, but overall fairly inconsequential in-between segments on tracks. Perhaps certain power-ups change functions between the air and the ground, like the feather, which should be usable outside of battle mode, which could allow you to gain extra height in the air, or the giant mushroom, which could drop you from the sky, crushing flying and grounded foes alike beneath your cart. But what about the bomb, being recontextualized as something you drop to the ground to affect carts below? But we could also ensure that the people on the ground are not helpless, allowing them to return fire with their own power-ups to make the tracks of Mario Kart start to resemble the Battle of Britain. Another way that this could be done is by adding the ability to tunnel into the ground, perhaps at a slower pace, but then allowing these carts to launch into the air from below ground. I would of course want to have anti-grav return as well, but as much as I do like the water segments, I think it would be too ambitious to ask for them as well. As they stand, they wouldn't be as mechanically cohesive if there were a bigger focus on aerial and ground movement. A mechanic there is though is branching paths. More emphasis on this by itself would be exciting. Imagine twisting pathways that crisscross and overlap, like spaghetti, or rope, or tree roots, or lactose intolerance person's intestines after I send them into orbit around a black hole. There are a lot of potential directions that Mario Kart could go, but key to all of it is retaining the balance of luck and skill that makes Mario Kart so engaging. But when could we see these series again? Switch 2 rumours are ramping up, and if my suspicions about early releases of Smash and Mario Kart, like with the Switch, are correct, then we'll know within the next couple of years what the immediate future of these series looks like. Even if Nintendo has one series of content expanding games left in them for these series, instead of mechanically innovated games, there has to be some changes coming. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an important appointment to be getting to.